Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great.
That's good.
I'm so good. I was just driving through the wind and the rain and trying to get Noah frantically to this board meeting full of lunatics.
Yeah, things have been getting a little crazy here in town. The local news has reinvigorated their investigative reporting with a report on the hiring of that principal in our district who was having a relationship with a student several years ago in a different district, and the shit has hit the fan again.
Yes, the proverbial shit has hit the literal fan.
And Noah gets to have a front seat to the whole thing at the board meeting tonight. Very exciting.
Yeah, and I haven't protected him at all from the details of this thing. It's just too good, you know.
Yeah, Ben came home today, same thing. He was like, oh, is this about the teacher that was sleeping with the student? I'm like,
yeah, it's like, it's one of those things, you know, most people I've spoken to about this, at first they are horrified. They say, oh my God, a teacher has done this at some point to a child and they should be in prison and locked up, throw away the key. And then they get the details and they say, wait, well, how old was the girl? And they say, no, it was a boy and they were 17. And then we all go, oh, I see. And secretly everyone, you know, we're like high-fiving a little bit, but really it is horrifying.
It's a terrible double standard.
I know, it's an awful double standard. But yeah, so it's a big scandal. And it actually goes much deeper from what I understand. Certain board members are into all sorts of interesting things that are coming out.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What do you mean board members are into certain things that are coming out? I did not hear this.
I'm reluctant to say anything on the air.
Oh, no one listens to this. You can tell me.
So, you know, there was that, you know, that crazy reporter guy that just like shows up and is like, he's not a parent in the district. He drives an Uber, but he does like he fashions himself as this, investigative reporter, but really he's just like digging up muck and creating, problems.
He's a chaos agent.
Yes, a chaos agent. And he had uncovered that there was some connection between one of the board members who was responsible for hiring her.
Oh, right.
And, it was like, and then there's some other stuff that is not so good that may be coming out.
Really?
Yeah. But it's all wild speculation, but I dare not say any more about it. But
right, maybe you can tell me offline.
Yes, I think I'm going to have to. Yeah.
Are you listening to us speak over monitors? Because I'm getting a little blowback in my.
Thing. I don't know how to turn off Noah's speakers or get the audio to go through my headphones instead of the speakers.
Is there a switch on the headphones?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see a switch. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe it's in the audio out. How bad is it? Just a little bleed?
It's a little echo.
It's a bloody. Wait.
It's not as bad as the Zoom call I had earlier today.
Yeah, I just turned the overall volume down. We're sort of throwing this together. I apologize, guys, that I couldn't make this the interview with Scuba Danny today. I really wanted to, and I sort of had a last minute problem in Queens that I had to. Well, not a problem, but I had to be there at 9:00, and I could not get out of it. But I did listen to the interview, 30 minutes of it. And
I checked it in Dropbox, and it's an hour and a half, which is maybe more time than you kind folks want to listen to me talk to Scuba Dan for. But I don't know. Give it a listen. Anyway. So if you struggle with alcohol addiction, Nat, you've likely tried to make January 1st your sobriety date at least a half a dozen times. Mm-hmm. If it stuck, great. And if it didn't, though, you are not alone. The reason most people struggle with keeping their New Year's resolutions is because they lack accountability. After all, who would really know if you cheated? Do you know who would know? If you were using SoberLink to maintain sobriety, your support network would know.
They would know.
So, SoberLink is the only high-tech breathalyzer system that will truly hold you accountable when cravings get a little too loud. Here's why it has our stamp of approval, Nat. You'll test at the same time every day, eliminating testing anxiety. Testing anxiety. Devices have built-in facial recognition, so it knows it's you testing. Tamper sensors flag any attempt at trying to beat the system. Friends and family receive instant test results, helping rebuild trust and prevent relapse. Isn't that something?
That is something. I always had testing anxiety, but it was mostly because I was trying to cheat the test.
Yeah, I think that's probably why most people would have testing anxiety using a SoberLink device as well. Anyway, invest in yourself this year. Visit www.soberlink.com/middle-ages to sign up and receive $50 off your device.
And Mike will middle-hyphen your ages.
Sideways. We got new ad copy for the new year. Maybe you could come up with a new joke.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think?
Well, they need, I got to think of one. I'm sort of spitballing here, but yes, SoberLink. Another great year with SoberLink. And we understand that they've been getting some good feedback. So thank you guys for supporting SoberLink. And it's a great product. It's helpful and thorough.
Yeah, and we told them we were raising the price of their ad buy, and they asked how much, and then we never told them. So
$10,000.
So here we are reading their ads without a contract in place.
We're just doing it for the love of the game, man. It's all for the love of the game.
Certainly is not for the money. That's for sure.
No, we do it because we believe in SoberLink.
But SoberLink,
thank God, I don't need it right now.
Right. SoberLink did say that some people have purchased devices from our podcast. They have gone to the SoberLink website. They have actually plunked down the money and bought one of these things. So,
well, I would love to hear from the Monksters who have done this. I mean, we've heard a lot from the great Grant B. G Money Smooth, the editor at large of the RMA Newsroom, who famously had great success with the SoberLink device. And but I'd love to hear more stories from anyone who has gotten something out of it. I know SoberLink would appreciate it. That would be fun.
Yes.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads in their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
And I'm Mike R.
And boy, do we have a show for you today on RMA. We are joined by the great and powerful Scuba Danny, who is trying for a sober, what month is this?
January, I believe.
Sober January, but it doesn't rhyme, so I have a feeling it won't be successful.
It's dry January.
Oh, dry January?
Yes.
That's like what, like a slant rhyme? Or
I don't think you can say that anymore.
No, you can't.
I don't know what that even means. What is slant? The fuck is slant January?
Somebody tell us what a slant rhyme means. And all this and more today on a very, very special edition of RMA. And welcome back to the show, everyone. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks.
And welcome to the greatest storm of the century going on outside here.
It's raining, Nat. It's just raining.
It is raining. It's pouring. The old man is snoring. And hopefully we won't lose our power.
They sent everybody home from my job early today. I was not there. I was here working from home, but they sent everybody home.
So you went downstairs to upstairs.
Right. And then they said you can work from home tomorrow because, I don't know, it's raining. Am I underestimating the destructive power of this storm, do you think?
Well, I think once hopefully they're expecting power to go out. I'm getting text messages from the power company, getting all these warnings, but usually it's overblown, I think.
You would think I would get messages from the power company considering I work kind of for them, but nope. nothing.
Yeah. They're warning us and Con Ed alert. Why am I getting a Con Edison alert?
You have an office probably in
in the Bronx.
So how was your holidays? How were your holidays?
The holidays were exciting. They were busy. They were stressful. All those things rolled into one. I think like a lot of monksters out there, you were probably either entertaining family, friends, and it's a different kind of stress if you're alone for the holidays. And so,
Were you alone for the holidays?
I was not, but I certainly was thinking, man, wouldn't that be something if I could have some peace. But it was actually great. We had 20 people in our little house. I got to see my brother and his kids and aunts, uncles on both sides. It was very nice. We always do Christmas at our house, so it's sort of a big deal for us to do it. And we survived, but, nothing too out of the ordinary. What about you?
Well, I don't have a suit of clothes nearly as cool as the one that you've been sporting in some of the pictures I've been seeing lately. But
I got to wear my Christmas suit, which looks like bad wrapping paper just everywhere.
It's a good suit. We had a nice time. It was a little smaller than usual. I mean, some folks on Erin's side of the family have some health issues. Her dad was able to make it, which is great.
Oh wow!
And but a couple of her aunts were down for the count. So it was small, but it was good. We went out to her mom's for Christmas Day. A little bit of drama there, but nothing off the wall.
Nothing too entertaining.
No, Jack kind of sprained his ankle running around in the dark outside. Yeah, that kind of sucked. So because we wanted to go hiking upstate, but that kind of put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, crutches don't work great on a hike.
Yeah, I had to take him to PM Pediatrics the day after Christmas. It was a real treat. Dimitri's been sick, but I don't know. The holidays were fine. Some years I get really hyped up about them, and some years I just could care less. And this was kind of right down the middle of that.
Right.
I mean, I had a couple weeks off from work because I had vacation time I had to burn, or else I would lose it. And,
oh my God, that would be so amazing. I can't even imagine a world where they're like, you know what, you've got 2 weeks that we don't want you to do anything, and
well,
please.
I mean, it would be great if I could actually have not done anything, but the work is still there, and calls still need to be made, and decisions need to be made, and work needs to be done. So for the first week, I didn't feel like I was
2 weeks.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was really off at all. The last week, yes, New Year's Eve, I was in bed by 10 o'clock, 10:30 maybe. Wow. Yeah, it was. Jack had some friends over because Jack is 16, and I decided that extending an invitation for him and his 3 buddies to stay at our house was far preferable to me wondering if he was wandering around the streets somewhere with friends in another town where I couldn't keep an eye on them. And I think that's going to be an ongoing invitation to be extended, because the only way I can go to sleep on New Year's Eve if my son's not in the house is I can't, right? So
yeah, that would be nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but I mean, they behaved themselves. They hung out downstairs and played Magic actually for 4 hours. Yeah. Jack
Ben was over the house hanging out with Noah the other day, and I was pleased to see that he had some Magic cards with him. I said, what's that? You play Magic? And there were these Japanese Magic cards. Not sure why he had them, but
Ben had them?
Very cool. Yeah, Ben had like a Japanese Magic card. So I don't know where he
hasn't
found that
been
one.
Playing much, but Jack has taught like all his friends, and now they play.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah,
I got a Magic set for Christmas, actually.
Did you really?
That I've been threatening to use. Well, they came out with a Doctor Who set.
Oh.
Now I haven't played Magic the way I want to in a very long time, but I'm still like fixing to someday. I'm gonna get back to it. I have a very valuable collection from college that is just sitting in my closet, waiting to be turned in for rent money.
You're fixing to play some Magic, huh?
Fixing to play some Magic. And that's a fun game. I always talk about it. It's like poker plus chess plus Dungeons and Dragons all in one. It's a nerd's dream.
I tried a couple times. Yeah. I had a hard time following it. Yeah. I mean, I would love to. I mean, it's people always ask, well, what can I do in dry January if I'm not drinking? And one of the things you can do is play Magic with your friends.
Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
I just remembered something because I don't have anything written down, but we did get a very special gift at Christmas. So we went to Christmas Eve at my wife's cousin's, and he's I've talked about it, we do it every year. It's the Seven Fishes dinner.
Right.
Right. And so Max got pink eye. I had forgotten about that.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And like, I felt really bad because I think he gave it to a kid or two, but he hadn't been complaining about it. And I think I don't see red that well. I'm red-green colorblind, so I never noticed it. And then we were about halfway through the night, and someone said, "Why is Max's eyes so red?" And I go, "Oh, are they?" And I was looking at him; he's blinking a lot. So 12:30 Christmas Eve, we were at a CVS getting just eye drops, just to they're just the regular over the counter. And miraculously, our local pediatrician, Dr. Greg, he does an hour on Christmas where we went to go see him. Isn't that amazing?
Does he dress up like Santa?
He doesn't.
He should.
But he's there.
Yes.
And
that's the biggest gift of all.
I mean, he's amazing. And then he got the drops, but throughout the next couple of days, Noah started to get it. So he took some of the drops, and then my eyes started to go a little when I did the drops.
Wow.
So that was our big exciting gift for Christmas. Did you get anything for Christmas that you want to brag about?
I got the brand is Clipsish. It's a speaker. It's it's a Bluetooth speaker, but it's also a wired speaker with a phono preamp in it. So I've hooked it up to my record player, and I have been playing records, and that is making me very happy lately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Records are back.
Besides your Magic deck, you got anything?
Yeah, I did, but I can't remember what they are. I'm drawing a complete blank. I got some nice. Oh, I got these really nice shoes. That's what I'm excited about. Cool. I got a couple pairs of boots, and I am drawing a total blank on the rest of what usually I just like to watch the kids open up stuff. I didn't have any.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I say the car I got. That's my gift for all time. I still have this ridiculous car that makes me happy. Now I've come to accept that the car is mine, and I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to lean into my brand here.
Acceptance is important when you're trying to get well. It's
yeah. So other than that, though, another Christmas gone by in 2024. We were talking about doing a show about New Year's resolutions and what kind of intentions we want to set for the new year. And I had a great long list, and I've already forgotten them all. I think I wanted to. I want to read more.
Well, it's January 9th, so.
Yeah, so I can still do it. I want to read more. I started reading The Hobbit to Max, and I'm just getting into it. Finally, he agreed to let me read him The Hobbit.
Oh, cool. And I've tried that with kids, and they tuned out after the beginning, yeah.
I have to work for it, man. Like, I do the voices. I over-explain. Like, I'll read a paragraph, and I'll see the confusion in his eyes, and then I'll go back, and I'll kind of give him the story again. I'll say, well, no, Bilbo, his mother was name was Took, and the Tooks were adventurous, but the Bagginses were not, so I explained it to him, and he got into it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. You should come over and read to me before bed.
Yes, I'll perform all of Tolkien's works,
I want you to do the Silmarillion next.
The Silmarillion?
Yes.
What is that? Why don't I know that?
It's the book he wrote that's basically the whole history of Middle-earth and the Elvish times.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yes.
That sounds crazy. He wrote an entire history that takes place before the books that leads up to the story. Brilliant.
It's very difficult to get through, even as a Tolkien fan.
Well, the language, even in The Hobbit, which is supposedly written for kids, is dense. It reminds me of Herman Melville's, like in Moby Dick. He writes these long sentences with lots of commas, So it gets sort of tiresome.
I think he was
when is this going to end?
Wasn't Melville getting paid by the word or something? I don't know if Tolkien was. Maybe kids were just smarter back then. I don't know.
I think they may have been. They didn't have TV to deliver them the goods more quickly.
No, but the radio was ruining their minds.
That's true.
Hey, before I forget, we got a review.
Yes.
And we should read that. It came in just before Christmas, and I know who wrote it, I think.
Ooh, okay.
I think it was.
Let's not call him out.
Charlie. But anyway. But what's funny is I don't know who who titles these things or who assigns the name, because the name on it is Hipbum, Hipbum.
I think it's their username or something, or maybe I've done reviews, but I don't remember how it pulls the name. I think it's their Apple user account.
Oh, maybe
or
that's
something.
it, right?
Yeah.
And the title is medieval, but I read it as Medival, like medical evaluations. So I don't know. It's
Sounds like one of my customers.
Something wrong with my brain, I guess.
Yeah,
anyway,
he
says the guys thread the needle between taking their recovery seriously but not being too serious about it at all. A very accomplished person in all areas of his life. I still can't believe that Mike ever smoked crack! Exclamation point.
Me neither.
Nat could make a living professionally with his golden voice and his ability to improvise, and then I sent you the screen capture and I lost the rest of it. Shit.
Nat can make a living professionally. This is my favorite review of all times. With his golden voice and ability to improvise and do more. Yeah, I didn't click it either, but great review. I love.
Yes, thank you.
Flattery will get you everywhere. So thank you.
Write us a review. Send it in. We'll read it. We promise.
We shall.
So I don't know about you, but I can't. Doing this thing at night is just, my brain is totally fried, and doing it over Zencastr is terrible. It's terrible. I used to really be into it, but I realized that our timing is off, and it's very stilted, I feel.
Agreed.
And I dislike. So going forward,
that's why we're going to do just the opener and the closer, and it's just it was such a great interview with Scuba Danny, and I think we've been talking about him quite a bit, and he's been listening to the show, and I actually ran into him at some event at the school, and I think we had done the show that day, and he made some comment about, you got a lot of people waiting for you to put that show out. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, we're working on it.
So anyway, the genesis for having him on was the fact that, I've noticed that every season where there's a dry something, like a dry sober October, a dry January, we always seem to go through the same list of reasons why you should have a dry January, like health benefits, mental health, better sleep, weight management, financial stuff, improved relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And I really didn't want to do that again because I feel like we've beaten that horse to death. And
that horse is glue.
What?
That horse is glue. Didn't they used to turn horses into glue, or was that just an old wives' tale?
I don't know. Horses' hooves, they make into gelatin.
Gelatin, right.
Yes.
The horse's jelly.
So we've beaten that horse to jelly, I guess. But I thought it might be interesting to have somebody who's not in recovery and who really doesn't want to stop drinking, who nonetheless has done sober Octobers and dry Januaries, and is an intelligent guy and has a lot to say about his thought process in and around alcohol. And so I figured that would be an interesting way to kick off the new year. So I sat down with him, and we started talking. Because we've known each other for 10 years, we just sort of kept on going. And
and I think that the more I learn about this recovery thing, and the more I listen to and read, the more I'm realizing, like as we talk, that maybe total abstinence, which is what we prefer for you and I, but maybe we're missing the boat on helping more people who could really benefit from moderating their drinking a bit, or at least beginning to attempt to. Because how would they know if they like it unless they've got some impetus, some goal like, it's sober October, Joe Rogan, and as Danny says, and so it's interesting to see how someone who's not like fully immersed, or as he said, he's not court mandated. I thought that was interesting. He does say that, that he's like, look, I'm not court mandated. He never had the discussion with his wife where, for me, it was part of trying to save my marriage to stop, drinking and using. So it doesn't sound like he's got that hanging over his head. He doesn't have like my other friend whose his job is like, hey, you're going to lose your pension if you don't make this happen. So it's a very different kind of thing to try and go get sober when it's like something you're looking to do. It's very different, I think. And there's a lot of people out there who are beginning to realize that maybe this is the best thing for their health.
Yeah, but he also pointed out that we do a lot of things that aren't necessarily the greatest for our health, and so maybe that's not going to be a motivating factor in and of itself. And frankly, he's like 15 years younger than me, so probably, 5 years younger than you. And, successful business owner, and, everything's, he's going along fine. And so why would you stop? At that point, the scales are still balanced to the point where you're getting more out of it than it's taking away from you, right?
But is that really true? I mean, a lot of times when I was back at that point, I thought, hey, not only who am I hurting, but, I enjoy it. I like to unwind. And, but once you get sober,
nothing like unwinding with a little crack and heroin at the end of a day.
Mostly the scotch, but really until you get that separation from that kind of thing, the daily drinking, or you don't realize how much better your life can get. I mean, for me, it was like exponential. And I think a lot of people who get sober, look back and go, man, thank God I did that. Like nobody regrets getting sober.
Yeah. And that's the thing though. It's like, it's hard to, like, you and I now have experienced some real time away from booze and substances. And so we've seen it play out in our lives and how much better it's gotten, to try and like convince somebody who's just doing a 30-day challenge how much better it can be if you extend that on into infinity or whatever. It's hard for them to get their heads around that, because there's no way for you to see it unless you do it. I mean, you can be an example. You can be like a concrete example of what a healthy, sober life looks like, but it's still not internal to the person.
Yeah. And one thing that stuck out to me listening to the interview is something that you've said before, which is, it's so much easier to just stop drinking than it is to like calculate moderating and being like, okay, I can have 2 and it's almost torture. I feel like if you're enjoying like maybe a 6-drink kind of Friday and Saturday typically, and now you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm only going to have 2. And then you're constantly trying to watch what you're drinking and you're always thinking about it. I think for me, it was so much more freeing to just completely cut it out of the equation. It's like, for me, it's like one less thing to have to manage, so I think that's a good argument for just abstinence. It's that, who wants to run around like calculating, you've had 3 drinks and it's Friday, and that means you've got 2.5 more days where you can have 1. And, it's so much easier in the long run to just say, hey, I don't drink, and find other ways to relax and enjoy yourself.
Yes. But I think that's, for a lot of people, it's the finding other ways to relax and enjoy yourself piece. That's right. Hard to sort of plug into a 28 or a 30-day challenge, right? Because you're not going to rebuild your whole social life in 30 days. And 30 days in, you're probably saying to yourself, man, this fucking sucks. I'm a hermit inside my house. And I think Danny mentioned it today. Like it's like, why I'm going to hide for 30 days because, what am I going to do? Go to the party and not drink, And so I think these 30-day challenges are too short. Which is why I suggested to him 60, and he says he's going to give it a try. And then, you look at, there's another outfit out there called 1 year no beer. And I'm like, well, now that's pretty smart, because a year is definitely enough time to sort of rewire and see if this is something you want to go for good. But I think if you are willing to take a year off from alcohol, then probably you are advanced enough in self-knowledge to know that you need to do that, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, probably if I were to go back in time and give myself advice, or if I were to design, some kind of sobriety program for people voluntarily looking for it, I think you have to build in, like from the get-go, alternative social events, which is why AA works for a lot of people.
Right.
Even if it's not, only because this is a new sober group of people, even though it's an AA meeting, it is a social, it is a social gathering, and it does give you something else that you can do, instead of like, I had a guy in my rehab, who, this was the outpatient. I would see him 3 times a week, and he was having a hell of a time. Now, he was court mandated, but he was struggling, and you might laugh at this, but this is what this guy was struggling with. He was in a dart league at a bar, and this guy loved to play competitive darts at this bar. And it was his entire, not his entire social life, but this was like a main focus. It's something he loved to do. And like, how do you tell a guy like that, maybe don't play darts anymore, or, maybe you should find something else. It's like, what do you say to someone like that who loves these bar events? Is he just lying to himself about the dart playing because it's at a bar? Or, so that's difficult if you've got these activities that are centered around drinking, or you go out to watch football games with your buddies and they're all getting wasted. You're at a sports bar and you're the only schmuck sitting there sipping a Shirley Temple. That could be very difficult. I think a lot of people probably get hung up on that, rightly so.
Yeah, I think people shouldn't worry about that so much. Like, just quit drinking and then see what happens. Because maybe you'll decide. Put the plug in the jug. Maybe you'll decide somewhere down the road that the thing that you enjoyed about playing darts in the pub is not playing darts in the pub, it's drinking with your friends, Or maybe you decide that you really, now that you're the only one who's not drunk playing darts and you're winning every game, maybe that's, maybe it'll reinvigorate your love for dart playing. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Get into it.
But, then
move on to axe throwing.
And I mentioned this in the interview, the group called the Phoenix that goes out there and sets up these meetups and stuff. It's like you go out and you do things that don't involve drinking with other people who are not drinking, but you don't make the not drinking the central focus of the activity. You're just going for a hike with people that don't drink, or you're going to the gym, or you're playing pickleball or whatever,
Right.
It's hard because you shouldn't judge the things that you think are going to be boring or not fun based on the same brain that you have while you're still drinking, because the two things are so different. Anyway, we're already at like 2 hours if you count the interview in. So let's get going on the interview, and then we'll see you on the backside to wrap things up. All right.
We'll see you in your backside.
We'll be right back after a lot of words. Honestly, the whole thing is very weird and artificial. Just the notion that we're doing this is weird to me. But anything for content.
I was telling somebody.
So you're already too far away.
I was telling somebody before. I'm like, I am a expert now. 9 days in.
You know what though? I'll be honest with you. We've done these things every time the holidays roll around, and some of it is like social media driven, right? If you have an episode out on Dry January in January, more people will find it and listen to it. Same thing with Sober October, and then other months, whatever. But at some point it gets to be so boring. Just like, here's 10 reasons why you should consider doing Dry January, or something along those lines, right? Like,
it feels like I'm listening to the podcast right now.
Improved health, mental health benefits, better sleep, weight management, financial, blah, blah, blah. How many times can you say the same thing? And plus, then the older audience members get like,
well, the guys that have been sober for like years now, like, all right, why are we talking about this?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or they'll download it for to be nice and maybe not listen to it, and we get bored doing it, to be honest. So I thought like this would be a really interesting approach to get somebody who's doing a Dry January to come on and talk about motivation, reason, a little bit about your history, something like that. Right. Anything you feel comfortable talking about.
And you're sure that like you're not going to have all these people like going right back to drinking just because I'm talking about it?
There is a certain revolving door in this business, right? I mean, people come in, people go out, and that's part of the, that's part of the puzzle. It's part of the Zen koan of recovery. Is that how do you stay stuck? How do you stick with the program? How do you make alcohol such a small and insignificant part of your life that you can drown it in the bathtub,
I have no idea.
But I mean, that's the issue. So anything that we say here is not going to drive people out into the arms of the neighborhood.
I'm going to make a very compelling argument.
You got to get close to the mic. I'm sorry.
I'm going to make a very compelling argument for continuing drinking.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. And that'll be interesting.
And all the reviews, like, this is the worst sobriety podcast I've ever listened to.
Well, I don't know if you've been listening to us recently. Probably not, because like you have listened to the show before, but you're like, I can't listen to you while I'm drinking because
it feels wrong. Because I'm sitting there with a beer going, yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea. I should be sober.
Well, I suppose we should provide a little context since we're just, going into this. Yeah, we started 3 minutes ago.
All right.
You and I are friends. We go back a long way, right? And in fact, the first time we met was in a bar.
Yep.
It was in the Canterbury's bar just down the road from here, which is now something else. It's trading on the name of Teddy Roosevelt now, but you were there with your wife and I was there with my wife, and because we had just moved into town, we didn't really know anybody, and we're like, look at these fun people hanging out, having a couple of drinks.
We are a lot of fun.
Did you have kids then? I don't even know. 10 years ago?
No.
Okay.
So it was right before my wife got pregnant.
Okay. But we had kids and we're desperately needing a night out, and of course, like, at least back then, the night out was always like, let's go sit in Canterbury's and drink like a gallon of wine. And
well, what else do you do?
That's exactly. It's a good point. But it turned out that, you and I started talking and I was like, well, I really want to get back into scuba diving because that was something I had been doing like when I lived in Staten Island before my wife passed away. And then when years go by and blah, 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 I want to get back into it. And as coincidence would have it, you were a dive instructor.
Yep. It was just serendipitous.
It was serendipity. Yes. So that's how we met. And then I took classes with you and all that kind of stuff. And then we developed a relationship beyond the dive shop. And,
absolutely.
And now you're just an old man that takes pictures of birds with me.
I go with you to take pictures of birds, and I try to talk you out of taking a million seagull pictures every single time that we go out.
I don't know. You got that camera up shooting those birds too, my friend.
I'm in denial. So I'm not a birder. I just want to be very clear. I have no problem being here as an alcoholic, but as a birder, I just don't want that connotation with my name or the reputation.
So we'll call you Dan for
sure.
Or Scuba Dan, which is how we may have mentioned you in the past on the podcast. So
either way is fine.
Okay. And then just to bring up one other drinking story, I don't know if you recall, of course you recall, we went up to do some dry suit diving with a set of double steel tanks so I could sort of get my muscle memory going up to some cove north of Boston in the Peabody area.
Yeah, Folly Cove in Gloucester.
Folly Cove. Didn't the shark come in there like a year or two after and eat someone?
No.
Yeah. Look it up.
Really?
Or right around there. Anyway, so after the day of driving, we decamped to some Italian chain restaurant.
Which one was it?
Carrabba.
Yes, Carrabba.
It was Carrabba, and got absolutely fucking shit-faced, crooked, drunk. And then the next morning we did more diving, which, it wasn't the best diving.
Well, I'm a professional, so that wasn't an issue for me.
Okay,
and that's part of the class. Like, you need to be able to just handle your alcohol and the hangover, while you're diving the next day.
So that interesting. Is that like in the PADI manuals?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in therapy right now. I'm gonna give you all the.
I handle it, but I didn't feel great about it. And it was a long drive back, but it was fun. I'm always interested why people decide that they want to do these things. Like, why do you want to do a dry January or a sober October? Because the conventional wisdom in the recovery community is if you need to take a month off from drinking, maybe that's something to take a look at.
Yeah. So the first time I did it, I've done like sober October. I've done dry April. I had this
dry April.
I've done a dry April. Yeah. I had this great plan that every other month I was going to go sober. So that I could say to myself, like, hey, 6 months out of the year, I'm completely sober.
Right.
It's not consecutive. I mean, like, I'm not crazy or anything like that.
Right.
So the first time I did sober October or heard about it was on like Joe Rogan's podcast, driving into the shop. And I just had it on and they started talking about sober October, blah, blah, blah. And it happened to be October 1st. I said, all right, I'm going to give it a shot.
Just like that, out of the box.
Yeah, just really impulsive, like every other decision I've ever made in my life, So I walk into the shop, and usually the first thing I do, if I don't have a class or anything like that, I'll go to the fridge, grab a beer, and do whatever work I need to do around the shop just to kind of entertain myself. And so I walk in, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do Sober October. And I walk right to the fridge. And I go to grab a beer. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I can't even make it in an hour. Huh. I said, oh, all right. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to do this. And that first time that I did Sober October was the hardest 3 days in the world. I was like, I've tried quitting smoking. I've never really done drugs. So I never had any of that stuff. But it was impossible. It felt impossible. And then I got over it.
After 3 days?
It took about 3 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you keep telling yourself, I keep telling myself that I need to be able to make it at least 3 days. Because that's, all the physical, if I have this physical need to have alcohol, then I have a real problem. If I can make it 3 days and I don't have that DTs or shakes or anything like that, then I'm fine. And it's all mental. So that first month, the first Sober October I did was incredibly stressful. Really, really hard. Harder than I thought it would be. I just thought that I could just not drink. But evidently I was like, I really do need to drink.
So at any point during that month, did you feel like after a certain period of time where you're like, oh, okay, this is easy. This is better. My sleep's getting better. My relationships are getting better. My clarity of thought is coming back.
I say about 3 weeks.
Okay.
3 weeks where you start feeling that. And then I always gave myself an exception to Sober October because we have the Oyster Fest in town. And that's my favorite thing to do. So I gave myself that one Saturday that I can have a couple beers.
So it's sober half in October.
No, well, it's 1 day out of 31, right? Or 30.
I like the way you think.
So, I mean, you're still at 90% sober.
See, when people come on and say, oh, I fucked up, I slipped up, and I haven't had a drink in 6 months, and then I went out last weekend, and I actually do the math for them. I take the number of days, I figure out the percentage of time they were sober versus the percentage of time they were drinking, and I say, well, look at how successful you are, and look at it that way. That's the way to look at it. There's a lot of assumptions built into alcohol use and non-use that are grounded in 12-step recovery, and they've just become sort of like the way that it is, right? And the way that everybody thinks about it.
Well, it's all or nothing.
Right.
When you think about sobriety, right? You can't be half sober.
Well, we'll put a pin in that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
The way I look at it is this isn't a court mandated sobriety for me. This isn't
right. It's
my relationship with my wife isn't pinned on the fact that I have to be sober, right? We never had that discussion where you need to not drink or we're going to get divorced. We never had that kind of conversation or that kind of issue. So this is all on me and my reasons for wanting to do it. So if I screw up, all right.
Yeah.
I'll start again tomorrow.
Right.
And just kind of move on. And at the end of the month, if it's a 31-day month that I did it and I was sober for 30 days, that's way better than I was for the past 6, 7, 8, 9 months, of drinking almost daily.
Yes.
So it's a win.
Right. So what was your initial motivation for doing it, though? Was it because it seemed like it was an instantaneous decision, but I often find that when I make instantaneous decisions, when I look back, there's a lot of stuff behind that instantaneous decision.
Well, I look at it kind of like the sober months that I try to do as a reset button, right? So I look at it, for me, the summer is my busiest time of year with work, with everything going on. And it's also my favorite time of year to just sit around and do nothing but drink. So, and it starts getting crazy. And I look at it, I'm like, all right, I know I'm going to be sober in October. I know I'm going to be sober in January. So my September and my December are absolute shit shows of, well, I'm going to stop drinking next month so I can get as drunk as I possibly want every day or whenever I want for the next month. And so I look at it as a reset. And it kind of just puts life back into perspective, like in a movie where somebody's having a panic attack and you get slapped across the face and it kind of takes you out of it. That's what I found it worked for me. And it helps with my my productivity and anxiety. I noticed that it builds up after a couple months of just the normal kind of day-to-day drinking that I do. And yeah, it's just a big reset.
Given that you noticed like all those improvements in anxiety and sleep and all that stuff, why go back to it then?
Because it's so much fun.
So what is fun about it?
All right, well, I'll tell you this. So you know how I know sobriety sucks?
How?
All right. There's an entire industry based around how can we make being sober more fun? And it's just, all right, go to a bar and get an NA beer or have a mocktail. Go hang out with your drunk friends because it is fun.
Well, I think you find that a lot of people who are early on in not drinking or in their recovery still have the mindset that the way that they have to have fun is to go to a bar and hang out with people like they used to. But I think the thinking that evolves over time and that your definition of what's fun changes. Because honestly, if you're not drinking, my experience is it's not very much fun at all to sit in a bar with people who are. Because
nobody wants to be the designated driver or the sober guy in a bar.
Because people who are drinking in a bar, like they, after like the first couple drinks, this is something I've noticed at work stuff over the last few years. They start to repeat themselves. The stories seem to go nowhere. Well, they think that they're the most erudite and interesting people in the world. To someone who's not drunk, it's just like, I want to go home.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point.
Yeah.
But you're sober. So, yeah, of course you're going to feel that way.
So, I mean, to me, it seems more like our social structure keeps people stuck in these like behavioral patterns that don't serve them because people have a fear that if they're not engaging in that kind of behavior, they're going to be socially ostracized or something like that. So there is a large NA alcohol movement, which is very recent.
You definitely notice it where like even like the brewery is starting to sell NA beer.
Which brewery?
The one right in town.
You're kidding me.
So they have NA beer now.
Do they make it?
I don't think they make it, but I think they could only sell New York's made stuff. So it's got to be from somewhere in New York. But yeah, that's like a big complaint where if you're sober and you still want to hang out with your friends, or my wife still drinks and like she doesn't really do the sober October or dry January or anything like that. So am I just going to sit there and drink water?
You could.
Yeah, there's nothing, right? Like, it sounds absurd where I'm sitting here going like, well, I don't want to just drink water. I mean, I drink a lot of water all the time. Who wants more water?
I mean, the thing that I found especially irritating about that brewery is that if you didn't drink beer, there's like nothing else. They don't even have soda in there. I mean, maybe they do now.
Yeah, they have wine.
Okay, right. But they're,
it's a brewery.
Yeah, but do they not do like an economic calculus that says there are a certain number of people that don't drink or maybe with partners that drink and we could still sell them stuff and it wouldn't really take that much to just have a cooler full of this shit around for like the 5% of the people that would come.
That now.
Yeah.
And especially with like my TikTok now inundated with dry January videos and everything like that. I think I said it out loud too many times and China now knows. But yeah, like their restaurants and breweries, they're going in on this like, hey, you want to be sober? We could still sell you the exact same cost of a beer, just you're not going to get anything out of it. Which I think is a complete scam, like or mocktails. Just they drive me nuts.
Well,
you're paying $14 for juice.
Yes, the better places though will put some thought into it and make it like with the amount of labor they put into a cocktail. But at the end of the day,
juice and seltzer.
It's tasty, and you get it in an adult glass, and you feel like you're participating in some kind of adultly ritual.
See, but you're faking.
Yeah,
you're pretending to go out and drink and have fun.
Well, you're actually having fun. You're not pretending to have fun. You're just having a different kind of fun. Yeah. So, like I noticed in myself. I'm like 4.5 years now, right? And I noticed the first year, all I felt was uncomfortable in social situations. And it took me a while to sort of reprogram my head into seeing it in a completely different way. And it's really cognitive behavioral therapy that's in all these books that I've been trying to shove down your throat for the last few years, like This Naked Mind and, Alan Carr's The Easy Way to Quit Drinking. And I'm sure there's a bunch of others, but it all basically lays out all the facts about alcohol, how it's holding you back. It's a 100% poisonous neurotoxin with no positive affects whatsoever. And was that your phone or mine? I'm sorry.
That's mine.
Yeah. And now I go out and I just observe people drinking, and I have the reverse of the feeling that I had in the first 6 months. Like, I am so happy I'm not doing that anymore.
I found when the first time I did it, and I would have to go to these social events or like club events, stuff like that, and which I had to go to. So like there's, as a business owner, like I have to, show my face at these things, which I would
understood.
I would completely avoid them if I could, but the amount of anxiety that I had the first time I went to one of these events, and it was, I'm going to be at a restaurant, everybody's drinking, people are eating dinner. What am I going to drink? Mm-hmm. I don't really drink soda. So I got myself a Coke and I sat there, and the anxiety that I had, the level that I had, that I was panicking before I went. And we got there, and I drank a soda. I was there for a couple hours. I nursed it, mm-hmm. and I was fine.
Yeah.
And it took that first time to say, oh,
right.
I don't have to drink, even though this is exactly what I would have done mm-hmm. at that time. I find like now, so I didn't do Sober October this year. So with this month, it feels like a month and it's been 9 days in. I know that I'm purposely avoiding a lot of social activities because I don't want to drink. So, and I don't even want to put myself into the situation at this point now. I want to give myself another week or another 2 weeks where, all right, I can go sit at a bar and have a seltzer and lime. I have a date night tonight with my wife. It's something that's really important to us.
Right.
So we're sitting there talking to each other. She's like, well, what do you want to do? You don't want to drink, so we specifically don't want to go to our local bar where we normally would be, the same bar that you probably found us at, 10 years ago. So it's like, well, what do we do? It's like, all right. And this is going to be the most alcoholic thing I'm ever going to say. Everything revolves around drinking when you're drinking, right? So
yes.
Like
you make an awful lot of space for it in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, all right, well, what can we do that doesn't involve drinking? Well, I don't want to go for a walk tonight.
Well, it's January.
Yeah. We're on a date night. And all right, let's go for a walk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to do that. We can go to the movies. There's nothing really good out.
Mm-hmm. You go to a play. You go to a concert. You could go paint some pottery. You could, there's like a million. You go to the gym together. You go to a spa. Get treatments, get massages.
Not 7 o'clock at night.
See, but so you have to ask yourself, like, why did none of those things sound appealing to you? Is it because they're not drinking, or is it like none of that stuff really grabs you?
No, well, my wife won't work out with me, right? So she does yoga and I do weightlifting, and I'm going to go right after.
Well, I mean, you could just go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Erin and I go out to dinner.
So
she'll have a glass of wine. I'll order some kind of weird ass mocktail just to,
So this is my issue with going out to dinner with my wife while I'm sober. So again, my wife she's not a heavy drinker at all, and she can go weeks and months without drinking, not a problem. But when we go out to dinner, she's going to get a beer or she's going to get a glass of wine, whatever she's going to get. Mm-hmm. And she stares at me. And when I order a soda or I order a seltzer, and she looks at me, she's like, "You're not going to get a beer?" She's like, "You're really going to stick with this?" And I said, "Well, you get mad at me if I'm drinking too much, and you get mad at me if I'm not drinking at all." And she said, "Well, just have a couple." And it's so unsatisfying to me just to have one or two.
Right. I mean, and
it's like you can't win with your wife. Well, and this is more so an argument that we had a couple of years ago when I first started doing this, where she didn't believe that I was going to go 30 days without drinking. Mm-hmm. Now she's a lot more supportive with it, and if I don't get one, she won't get one. Mm-hmm. So kind of thing. So she's definitely come around because she knows that this is something that's important to me that I need. But you sit there and it's like you guys have said it before in your podcast where it's so much more socially acceptable to drink than not to drink.
In certain social groups.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the first times I did it, or one of the months, we went to our friend's house, and they were hanging out, drinking, just, nice, normal parents that we normally hang out with. And I had a bottle of iced tea. Mm-hmm. And the other dad ended up having 12 bottles on the table to try to entice me to drink. And I said, no, I'm good. I don't want anything. It's like, well, it's so weird that you're not drinking.
Well, so what do you think that was all about?
I think we're social creatures, right?
I think that was the other dad feeling a little insecure about his own alcohol consumption and trying to.
I think a lot of people
because
do that.
When you think, don't you find it weird that alcohol is like the only drug that you have to justify not using, like in this society?
Well, I think when you tell people that you're sober for whatever reason, aside from being pregnant, do you have a problem?
But I think that depends on
there's connotation to it.
Think that some of that depends on the cohort that you hang out with, which if you've previously only hung out with people who drink, that's going to be your cohort, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to be your group, which is why I recommend AA to people, because I don't really believe that the program itself is all that effective in getting people to quit long term, but that's a discussion for another day. But what you get immediately is built-in socializing. You get a group of people who are also not drinking, who you can go out and do stuff with, which is sort of the magic behind these groups. But it's also why, like, things like Dry January and Sober October, I think anything that takes somebody away from alcohol long enough that maybe a couple of thoughts pop up in your head about, I feel so good at the end of this, I'm just going to keep on going, is a good thing. But I think just dropping that into the middle of your life and then trying to sort of graft your normal life into that 30-day period of not drinking is extremely difficult, if not impossible, because you're not changing anything except the fact that you're not drinking.
I see your point, and I agree with you. But for me, I've just taken alcohol out of the equation, right, on my day-to-day basis. And I'm taking your advice. I'm actually going to do February as well. I'm going to go for the full 60 days. You said that you don't really start feeling the effects until after the 30 days. So I said, all right, let me give 60 a try.
Did I say 90 days?
No, you said 60. You said 60, very specific.
Because it takes the brain 90 days to rewire a new habit. That's why, 90 days is a really good period of time.
Yeah, but March, that's Guinness is my favorite beer. So
they make NA Guinness.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it.
I had one last St. Patty's Day.
No,
it's not bad.
This bothers me about NA beer. So for the same amount of calories,
it's only 70 calories
for the same price as well, right? I went to the beer distributor the other night to grab a 6-pack of NA beer just to be able to.
Which one?
I got the Athletic Hazy IPA.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I've had that.
Yeah, it's good for an NA beer, right? So,
okay. I mean, all right, go ahead.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
Same calories, same price, which bothers me because it should be cheaper, right? That alcohol in there should cost a little bit extra, and it doesn't. So I'm spending the exact same amount of money on an NA beer than I would on a regular IPA. And I'm not getting the benefits.
You're getting more benefits.
No. I'm like, all right, at this point, I might as well
You're getting
just
better
drink
sleep,
water.
better health, better, less cancer risk. There's a whole, you're getting, the money you're paying is like giving you more benefits in spades than what you're getting from buying regular alcohol.
I just, the whole NA beer thing just bothers me. And every single time I drink one, I want to call you and just be like, what the fuck's the point of this?
Listen, I don't really drink them anymore. I used to in the first year and a half.
Like a crutch?
Yes.
That's what I find that I'm using them for.
Exactly what it was. Although I would call it like an aid rather than a crutch, which crutch sounds more negative.
Yeah, tomato.
But so, but I found that while they were very helpful for me in the beginning, I'd come off the boat and I'd crack an NA beer while I'm gutting a fish or something. I'd be like, hey, America, woo. And then after a little while, I realized that I never really drank much beer because I loved the taste. I drank beer because I like to get fucked up on beer. Mm-hmm. So, and the funny thing is I never liked IPAs when I was drinking, but I like them. I drink like Lagunitas hop water, which is basically 0 calorie, It's just hops, like hop tea or something. And it's got that nice bite of an IPA without any of the other, like, you know, barley weedy stuff behind it. But anyway, I just kind of stopped drinking them. Like, I don't, I get them for the holidays in case, you know, I want to have one. But I've had a case of I've had nobody buys a case of any beer.
You have one, and you're like, why am I doing that?
Well, that's the other thing is, like, why do they sell them in 6-packs? Who the fuck is going to buy a 6-pack non-alcoholic beer?
Who's drinking a 6-pack of them in a sitting?
Well, okay. So, you know, there's a big controversy in the recovery community about whether NA beers are something that should even be consumed.
No, I didn't. Right, I'm not in the recovery.
So it's true, but in AA they say non-alcoholic beers are for non-alcoholics. You know, that stuff will lead you right back down the primrose path to picking up the bottle and all this other stuff because it's triggering. It'll get you going. Wasn't the case for me. Maybe it's the case for some people. I've the thought of having more than one. Like I sometimes I barely finish one. But I've also, there are some people that listen to this podcast who've said, you know, they've bought a 6-pack of NA beer and they drink it and then they go out and buy another one, like, because some of them have like 0.5% in them, and I guess people, the back of somebody's mind, they're like, you know, maybe if I drink like 20 of these, it's not, you know.
Well, you could do the same thing with orange juice, right?
Yeah, or ripe bananas, or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. But
I mean, how many would it take
at 0.5?
At 0.5,
I don't know. What's a regular beer, like 4 or 5%?
You know, let's call it 5% for easy math.
So then 5 of them would be one beer, right? No.
Oh,
I don't know.
No, this was my other thought. Like, if I had a regular beer and then I had an NA beer on top of it, is my BAC going up because of that extra 0.5? And it would have to, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
But they also make 0.0s. Like Heineken 0 is actually 0. It's not 0.5. And Peroni 0 is 0.
Yeah, I mean, I drink them, obviously. You know, we've talked about this where I do drink them. I'm going to get close to the mic, I promise. I'll have one. It'll hit the spot, right? I like the taste of beer. Mm-hmm. Beer's my favorite, especially IPAs. So I have one.
So you think?
No, I do like it. I know what I like. It's fine. So I'll have one, and like, okay. And the amount of times that I've sat down with an NA beer versus a regular beer and contemplated what am I doing with my life has been similar. Right? I'm sitting there sipping that NA beer, and it's like, oh, this kind of tastes like an IPA. So what am I doing? Yeah. Why don't I just have a water? Why don't I just have a seltzer?
Well, and that's where you get to in your head after a little while of not drinking. You're like, why am I trying to recreate this thing that I stopped doing?
So much water and so much seltzer you could drink.
That's true, but there's kombucha. There's all kinds of stuff you can drink out there now.
Oh, you've just become a hippie.
Well, but I mean, just because I have a picture of Jerry Garcia's Bodhidharma on my wall doesn't mean I'm a hippie, damn it. I guess that's the other end of the NA drink market, right? Is these people are putting these adaptogenic elixirs out there that are supposed to be more adult flavor than soda, but not alcoholic, that have like reishi mushrooms and shit in them that supposedly like calm you down and stuff. And
I have almost no idea what you just said to me.
So, you know, there's like NA tequila now and NA gin and NA scotch. Have you heard of this?
No.
If you wander through Whole Foods right now, you can probably buy all those.
What is NA tequila or scotch? Like, how is that even possible?
You know the actor Danny Trejo?
Yeah.
So he's been sober for 50 years, right? And he markets an NA tequila that he's come up with. I have never had it, nor would I have it, because to me, the only point of drinking tequila is to get fucked up. Like, I would never willingly drink tequila for the taste. Are there people out there that do? Maybe there are. But anyway, I guess people buy these things and then make cocktails out of them.
See, all you're doing is recreating the thing that you were supposed to leave.
And that's the principal, discussion. But if it's getting people off booze as a sort of like if you're becoming a vegan, a plant-based vegan, you're going to go out there and you're not going to start off by eating all chopped salad and shit. You're going to transition with these weird Franken meats that they sell in the supermarket, like Beyond Beef and this. Yeah. So I think that's the target market for those kind of things.
So it's not like the true vegan or like the true.
Well, maybe they're targeting dry January people who think that maybe they can have a fake scotch on the rocks and it will somehow scratch the same itch. I don't know.
Well, if you notice, coming up in December and January, if you go to the beer distributor, they put the NA beer in the fridge.
Finally.
Which normally it was just, in the back shelf in the corner, like you had to go look for it.
Right.
They have it in the fridge now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're obviously recognizing that people want this and they're probably going to drink it right when they get home, or they're going to go take it to a party or whatever it is. So yeah, I think in general, sobriety is becoming more socially acceptable, which is an absurd thought.
Is it? Or, is it a good thing? I mean...
No, I mean, it's absurd that it has to be normalized.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right? Rather than like, well, why would you drink? It's a poison. It's all these bad things with it.
Yeah. I mean, what are the virtues of alcohol in your estimation?
It's fun.
What part of it is fun? I'm just going to drill down a little bit now because
this is a therapy.
Because if you look at this, if you look at the science of it, okay, from a scientific perspective, no one would ever willingly put this shit in their body if they knew everything that it did.
But nobody approaches almost anything with science based, right?
True.
We're humans. We're going to go with like this emotion. We're going to go with a feeling.
Well, it explains the existence of Doritos as well.
Yeah,
right?
Okay. You're not going to put that in your body, right? Based off of the literature.
Except this stuff is considerably worse than eating a bag of Doritos, right?
Depends.
So what kind of got me thinking in the beginning about just quitting in general was I started reading about how, okay, if you drink 1 unit of alcohol, let's say like a beer or a glass of wine, you're going to get the loosening of the prefrontal cortex. It's going to create this relaxation, a little bit of it'll calm you down a little bit. Do you know how long that lasts with one drink?
No.
It's 20 minutes.
All right.
So, and after 20 minutes, you experience an immediate sort of feeling of withdrawal. So say you were to go out and have one drink, and then like a lot of people say, hey, I wish I could drink normally. I wish I could just go out and have 1 or 2 drinks. Honestly, to me, I would never want to have 1 or 2 drinks. That sounds like a fucking nightmare to me. I want to have all of the drinks. I want to have 10 drinks. I don't want to have 1 drink because
one is good.
I'm still out after 20 minutes and then the withdrawal comes in and it creates cortisol and my anxiety level will go up and all this stuff, which is why like they say like you drink the first one and then the drinks drink the rest of them because after one, you want to push off that feeling of withdrawal, of stress and all that stuff. And the surefire way to do that is to have another one. And then it sort of feeds on itself until, that's why you go out to the bar at 6:00 at night to have a beer with your friends. And then it's 1:00 in the morning and you're rolling in because like the alcohol is drinking itself for you, but, wow. Anyway, that just got me sort of thinking about the,
it sounds like you have a much more like hatred for alcohol than
I have developed a distaste for what alcohol has done to society and to people that I never had really in the past.
We obviously met in a bar, right?
Yes. No, look,
and we've drank plenty of times together, and I didn't even realize that you were sober until like 6 months in, and you had to like remind me like to stop offering you a beer every time you came over. But yeah, there's definitely a change in your attitude towards alcohol where, obviously now we're talking about, we usually don't go into this kind of depth whenever we talk about sobriety and stuff like that.
Right.
And we do spend a lot of time talking with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you seem like you have like this absolute, like just angst towards alcohol.
Well, my brain sort of rewired itself. And part of this was on purpose because if you see alcohol in a positive light, there's less reasons not to drink it, right? So it helps if you could, but anybody that really puts all the evidence on the table, and you can do this a little while after you quit drinking, right? Because your brain clears up and you start looking at this stuff objectively, because there's no little alcohol voice in your head trying to spin up excuses why you should go back and drink. Like that eventually goes away. Right. So you look at it all objectively and you think, man, the alcohol industry, did you know they sell 80% of their product to 10% of the people that drink? So they know that most of their products are going to people that have drinking problems, and they just don't give a fuck, you know? So am I angry at the alcohol industry?
Well, that's
kinda.
Business, man.
That's capitalism, I guess. Right. But
that's show business, man. You gotta, why would you market to the people who are not going to use your product?
Well, because basically you're just a drug dealer with a really large megaphone. I mean, and
yeah, but you could say that about any industry, right?
No,
not even alcohol.
No, but so how many people died of opioid health related issues last year?
I don't have the numbers.
It is roughly 100,000 people. You know how many people die every single year from health related alcohol issues? 100,000 people. Not counting car accidents, that's an additional 30,000 people. So you got to ask yourself why the government has all of a sudden decided it has to wage war on the opioid epidemic when the alcohol, which is a perfectly legal substance with no restrictions on its marketing, is being allowed to go out there carefree and continue to market with no restrictions. Well, so I mean, it annoys me.
Here in the U.S., we've already fought that fight, right?
Well, and the funny thing about prohibition, if that's what you're alluding to, is that alcohol-related deaths went down, liver disease went down. There were all these positive effects from prohibition. Now, of course, prohibition comes with its own set of problems, criminal activity, bathtub gin that kills people, right? So I guess there's always going to be a certain subset of people that are just going to want to alter their consciousness. It's as old as human history, right? Yeah. But there are far less destructive drugs you can use. There's psilocybin in a clinical setting. There's, cannabis to some degree.
I can't personally do drugs. So I have a license and they won't let me do it and I get drug tested.
Right.
So I've thought about it before I got these licenses and stuff. And we're like, well, I could just go and I'll just smoke weed. But I absolutely hate it. I hated smoking weed. I hate the way it makes me feel.
Paranoia?
My anxiety goes through the roof with it and I can't deal with it. And I don't know how I'm going to react to weed. Right. And every single time I've ever smoked it, I've always felt completely different.
Right.
So alcohol, I know
it's predictable.
I know that devil, right? So I know exactly how many beers it takes. I know how many scotches I could have. I know exactly whatever level I want to feel at, I can get there. It's kind of like I'm self-administering my own medication, right? If I want to just feel nice and relaxed, I know this is the amount.
So what are we medicating for?
Oh, man.
Because, I mean,
here's the thing this is what I like about alcohol, all right, or drinking in general, not necessarily alcohol. Well, we're talking about alcohol, so that's what it is. That's the activity, right? So just drinking. Mm-hmm. So what am I doing today? I'm drinking.
Right.
All right, well, you never say, oh, well, what else? It's just drinking. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to sit down in my chair in my backyard, which I'm really happy, I love doing that. All I have to do is just sit there and drink. I don't have to do anything else. When I'm sober, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, if I just sit here in this chair all day, I am a lazy piece of shit and there's nothing going on. But you put a beer in my hand and now, hey, I'm doing something.
But aren't you like you're borrowing relaxation from tomorrow? Because you're sitting there all day, you're drinking, and then the next day you wake up and for me, my anxiety was way worse. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, my heart would be pounding. The whole next day I was fucking useless.
I don't.
So is the cure worse than the disease?
No, see, I don't get that. Right. So just me personally, I don't.
You're younger, right?
Yeah, I'm. I don't know, 15 years younger than you, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know the actual math. The only time I'll get the anxiety from the night before of drinking is if I hung out with people that I don't really know or people that I should have not said a lot of the things I said. I typically don't have a filter in between my brain and my mouth normally. And then without that, with the alcohol added, then forget it. I'm going to go I'm an entertainer, right? So I want to shock you. I want to make you laugh. That's my favorite thing in the world. So the only time I'll get the anxiety is like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That's probably really inappropriate. Or I'll kind of I'll wake up in the morning and look at my wife and be like, oh, All right. She's not mad at me. All right, we're good. We're good. And I could go on with the day.
I mean,
but yes, there's times where I absolutely feel that anxiety. The fog is there for the next day, especially if I went a little too hard the night before or something. The fog is there, and the fog is the worst part, where just like you can't focus and like all that stuff. But typically, like whenever I do the dry months and stuff, I found that my first week or 2 weeks, I don't wake up any better.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it takes a while.
So it takes a while. But the first time I did this and I woke up, 3 days later, I'm like, I feel like I'm hungover and I haven't had anything to drink in 3 days, 4 days, 7 days, whatever it is. So, well, what the hell's the point of this? If this is the way I'm going to feel every day waking up, what is the point of not drinking? Well, and then you eventually start feeling better.
And that's a really good point, because whenever people are, putting dry January out there or sober October, they always tend to focus on the positives, right? Like, you're going to feel great, your sleep's going to be great and everything.
No.
And then when people start to do it, they realize that, and things aren't like improving right away, because you get like agitated and restless, right? Well, or you think, this isn't working, fuck it, why should I do this, right?
Well, that's the exact thought. Like, why am I bothering with being sober when I don't feel any better? And it takes that long period of time. You said it takes 60 days, right? Or 90, whatever you want to go with now.
Some of it depends on how much you were drinking in the past. Yeah. Like for me, like this last time that I quit, I didn't start feeling physically back to my old self for 4 or 5 months.
That's a long. I mean, obviously you guys have made an entire podcast about like how hard that actually is.
Well, and that's the thing, is like people aren't told this. Like, I don't know why 30 days is like the amount of time that everything seems to have to be done for. It's like a 30-day challenge. Rehab, it tends to be 30 days. Probably that's insurance driven, but when 30 days is not enough time.
Well, when you decided this time to quit drinking, was your intention to quit drinking forever?
It wasn't the first week, but after the first week. So that's a pretty loaded question, because again, the recovery community is like one day at a time. You just need to not drink today.
But what was your actual intention when you stopped drinking?
My intention was to quit drinking in an open-ended way. Like, I didn't say to myself in the beginning, because I didn't have any resources. In the beginning, it was just kind of like you waking up that one day, hearing something about taking 30 days off and then just doing it. But for me, it was like I was in a cabin in upstate New York, and I spent 3 days getting shit-faced, and I played a whole game of Monopoly with my family that I didn't remember. And then the next morning I woke up in a bed, and I remembered like sneaking out behind the cabin to smoke weed. And I was like, all right, things are, I need to take a rest to stop and reevaluate my relationship with substance abuse. Right. And it's not like I was doing a lot of drugs. I mean, I did in the 80s, but this is like...
In all fairness, you weren't sneaking in the back cabin to go smoke weed because like you felt weed was wrong. You just didn't want your kids to see it.
Yeah, I didn't want my kids to see it, but I wouldn't, like, why did I have a weed pen with me in upstate New York? Like, why was I drinking 2 bottles of red wine and like, what's up with that? Why, like, what? I can't.
Stuck in a cabin, upstate New York.
I like that shit, man. I like my family, and I like going hiking with them, and I like doing all this stuff with them. And like, so why was the alcohol there too? Because I could do all that stuff without the booze too. And so it was open ended until I started Googling like alternatives to AA, because look, I've always had a complicated relationship with drinking. Like in the 90s, like I had a lot of issues with drugs and stuff in the 80s. I sobered up for like 3 years in the 90s through Alcoholics Anonymous. And that program never sat right with me. I don't believe that you need to turn over your will to a higher power in order to achieve sobriety. I don't believe that turning your control over or admitting that you're powerless is a particularly helpful thing to do to achieve sobriety, especially for women and other people who have traditionally been powerless in society.
Man, you're going deep.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, what are the alternatives? And I happened to find a podcast by Rich Roll. I don't know if you've ever listened to him. He's been on Rogan, I think, actually. He's this vegan. He was a lawyer, cokehead, and alcoholic who became like a vegan, lost a whole bunch of weight, did a whole bunch of Ironmans.
Yeah, this sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah. And anyway, he has been in 12-step recovery for years, and he had this guy on. I remember this from an organization called 1 Year No Beer. And it's sort of like...
Were they still like drinking hard alcohol or...
Who?
Just the 1 year no beer, is it?
No.
Is that being like really specific? Like you can't...
No.
You can do anything else but beer?
That's their marketing shtick. The guy's like an entrepreneur, so he, you come up with this stuff. Like 1 year no beer, recovery in the Middle Ages, that kind of shit.
Yeah, but I would sit there and be like, well, I could not have beer. I could just drink scotch.
That's fine. That's the alcohol in your head telling you.
That's the...
you can still have scotch.
I think that's a neurodivergent...
But anyway, so I listened to this guy, and I listened to this interview, and he's all about... It's all about lifestyle. Like, you can have... alcohol is holding you back, because, I wrote a couple things down about this, because he actually had the other founder from 1 Year No Beer on this week.
I just want to point out that Mike was shaking his paper at me as he was preaching to me about...
I am not preaching. I am not a preacher, because you can't. There's no way I could make you quit drinking, even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's got to come from you. It can't come from the outside, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
this is like court mandated,
right? But even then,
even
then, people, and that says something, doesn't it? Like that people have the threat of prison hanging over their head, and they still can't not stop drinking. But anyway,
no judgment.
No, of course.
You're in that situation.
I'm not a judge, right? Yeah. I don't judge people. I can't, unless I walk a mile in their shoes, and you can't do that. You can't put yourself in someone else's
Everybody
head.
has a story.
Of course. Yeah. But anyway, so this 1 year no beer guy was basically saying, look, alcohol is holding you back. It's 100% poisonous neurotoxin with no effects. And if you stop drinking it, you'll lose weight. You'll be a better parent. You'll make more money, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, those are some very practical reasons to give not drinking a try. And they're not like, I hate the term alcoholic. I think it's reductive. I think it's not descriptive. I don't think it allows for the fact that there's a continuum of alcohol use disorder where people who are drinking like 1 or 2 drinks a day on one end and really would like to stop but can't, to the people who are the traditional under a bridge drinking out of a paper bag. And I don't think those people are necessarily the same. There's definitely commonalities between them, right? But I don't think...
That's a good point, because I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic.
No.
Because I'm not the guy under a bridge.
I don't even know what that term really means.
I don't like it, and if you have to sit... we're obviously sitting here talking about sobriety. That term is so bothersome to somebody...
Yes.
That I don't consider myself an alcoholic. I'm highly functional, if anything.
Yes.
But how far away am I personally from being under a bridge, drinking 50-50 Mad Dog or whatever it is? How far away from that? How many bad decisions do I need to make to get to that point?
Right.
And I don't know. I think that I have, I have some buffer room in here, before I'm there. But I just hate that term, because if I were to say it, right, if I go through every kind of like diagnosis and like saying, hey, am I actually an alcoholic, or am I just a heavy drinker, or am I just a normal person who likes drinking? It feels like I'm a failure if I say I'm an alcoholic, right? Because I screwed up. Right? Somehow I messed up, and now I'm an alcoholic.
Well, there's stigma attached to that term.
I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. But it's not a helpful term.
No,
because there's plenty of people who you will always be able to find somebody who's doing worse than you with drinking, right?
Well, when you're now looking at all these like TikTok videos and stuff like that, you're seeing people that only have that 1 or 2 drinks a day, or 3 or 4 drinks throughout the week, or whatever it is, and they're struggling getting off of alcohol the same way that I am when I'm drinking daily, so. I don't know where I was going with it, but like you just see that people are struggling with a little or as much as there's I don't know.
Well, alcohol use disorder is the preferred term these days, and that and it's a spectrum. And like I said, on one end of the spectrum is, well, yes, but on one end of the spectrum is the tic-tac guy who's drinking a couple times a week and still has an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and is alcohol dependent in some way. And on the other hand is the guy that's hiding the bottles around the house and all that kind of stuff, you know? And there should be some space in a treatment for both of those ends of the spectrum. The problem is like and I don't want to get into like inside baseball with Alcoholics Anonymous versus Smart Recovery versus all the other things out there. But like AA, there's a certain set of beliefs that you ascribe to if you're in that program. One is that, you know, it's a progressive disease that will inevitably end in jails, institutions, or deaths if you keep drinking. And if you need to hit a rock bottom before you can really accept the idea that you need treatment. And none of that stuff is supported by science. And in fact, science shows that early intervention in someone with an alcohol use disorder is a much better way of achieving a positive result than letting someone almost die and then trying to drag them back up from the gutter, right? Yeah. So there's this revolution in alcohol use disorder treatment that's going on right now. There's medications for cravings now that are used to be this thing called antabuse, and you would take it, and if you drank, you could potentially die. Wow, okay. Sign me up for that shit, right?
That's pretty good motivation not to drink.
I guess so, but... I
mean, a true alcoholic will probably still drink, and that's how they...
Well, and do you... I mean, the fear of death has not dissuaded a lot of alcoholics in history.
No.
You know?
I mean, you're cheating it almost every single time that you start drinking, you go driving, you're going to do a bunch of other dumb stuff that you decide to do while you're drinking. You know, so the fear of death isn't.
Well, I mean, the fear of losing your family, the fear of prison. I mean, people will drink their way and kind of make. But the thing is, alcohol warps your thinking when you're at that level of abuse, right? It warps your thinking to the point where you can't even see your way out of this box that you put yourself in. Everything is somebody else's fault, and I'll quit tomorrow, and all these other million justifications and rationalizations, because alcohol gets inside your fucking brain and fucks with the way you think, because it's sort of like alcohol will always make you think in the way that it encourages you to continue to use alcohol. It's never gonna, and there's a treatment methodology out there called Smart Recovery, which is cognitive behavioral therapy basically. And what it basically says is that any thought that you have in your head that encourages you to drink, you take that and you call it a beast. And you can give the beast a name, and it's this thing that lives inside your head, and you sort of separate that from the other you that is the real you, which is the you that doesn't want to use or drink, right? Okay. And that by understanding and acknowledging that this thing exists in your head, that's the way to eventually shut it. You can practice shutting it in a closet, telling it to shut the fuck up, putting chains around it, all this other stuff.
Telling kids about the boogeyman kind of thing.
Yeah, to some degree, but it's like your own self-hypnosis almost.
Okay.
Right. I don't know. How did I get there? I just rant. That's all I do. I just rant.
Well, all right. So just to
you let me talk more than Nat does.
That's all right. I'll start interrupting you. To circle back on the reason why I asked you, when you decided to quit drinking, like, was it for a period of time?
Right. Okay.
So the reason why I asked that is like, you're saying that the 30 days isn't enough time, right, for people to really start feeling the benefits. And why do we promote this 30-day dryness or dampness or whatever you want to call it? When I wake up in the morning on January 1st or October 1st, the first thought in my head is, I don't want to quit drinking forever. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't think that I have a bad relationship with it, with alcohol. So to me, it says, well, I don't want to give up drinking my whole life. So let me just take these 30 days. Let me take the small little bite out of it, see how I feel. And if I want to go back to drinking, I can. If I don't want to go back to drinking, there's nothing that says I have to. And I did it, I want to say like a couple of years ago. I went almost 2 months. I went like a month and a half. And by the 6th week, I was feeling really good. And I was really contemplating, like, maybe I just don't ever go back to drinking. Mm. And I was at that point where just like, I feel so much better in my life. I don't want to go drink. And I was going to go to a work conference. And our work conferences just tend to be,
they do,
just drink fest. So I was leaving that weekend and I said, well, I don't really want to drink. So what do I do? That's what it's going to be expected of me. And of course I went when I drank, and I went right back to the level of drinking that I was doing beforehand. And I felt like absolute garbage for weeks just because of that hangover.
Right.
But I don't want to quit forever. So let me take my 30 days.
Yeah.
See how I feel, or the 60 days that I'm going to do this time around, or I'm going to try to do this time around. And we'll see how it goes. And if I make the decision, at 60 days that, hey, let's go 70, let's go 90, let's go a year, let's go 2 years, whatever it is. And if that's what it comes down to, that's what it comes down to. But in my head right now, I don't want to say that I'm never going to drink again, because that's depressing to me. Which is it's sad,
Well, no, but it's understandable, because, the parallel for me was like, I quit drinking, and then I was worrying about, my sister-in-law's wedding, which was like 2 years in the future. And I'm like, well, this is absurd. Like, why am I
got a party in a week and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm contemplating, like, do I go? It's $100 per person, which includes all your food, drinks, and everything like that. So I'm not going to drink $100 worth of soda.
Can you eat $100 worth of food?
No, I don't eat that much. So it's like, well, I'm just wasting money if I go and I don't drink. So do I make an exception for that throughout this time just to be able to drink there? And it's absurd to me, with everything that I feel like I've accomplished in my life. This is what I'm thinking about, right? And it's like, I have to sit here and I'm doing this mental gymnastics of whether I should drink in 2 weeks at a party that I don't necessarily need to go to, but I want to.
Right.
And it's like, maybe there's something there.
I mean, that really is a great point, because the one thing you realize when you finally stop completely, if that's your future, whatever, is that all of that chatter inside your head, do I drink this time? How many do I have? Should I go to this thing? Should I do that? No, it's all gone. All that voice is gone, because it's already a settled question. Like, you're going to go, you're not going to drink. You're going to go. If you're going to go, it's going to be for other reasons than drinking your fill. Maybe it's like, I need to make connections with these people, whatever.
Yeah.
Because alcohol took up so much space in the head. When you think, am I going to drink here? Am I not going to drink here? Am I, if I drink then, I'm going to feel like this tomorrow. And then tomorrow, should I have a drink too? Maybe to feel better towards night. And then sometimes, I don't feel like drinking the next day, but then I have to have a drink anyway. And it's that voice that just keeps going on and on and on.
It sounds like I'm listening to my own head.
And then it just goes away after a while. But, so there's a couple schools of thought, right? You could, like, Smart Recovery says you have to make a big plan and say, this is the last day I'm going to drink. I'm never going to drink again. And everything that I do in my life is going to be, no matter what happens, I'm not going to drink again. And then there's the other side. There's like the 12-step AA folks that are like, as long as I don't drink today, I'll worry about tomorrow. And then when I get to tomorrow, I say, well, I'm not going to drink today. It's today, and every morning you do the same thing. And you eventually you string all those days together, and you have, there's years, whatever.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. But, there's I don't know if there's a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. And
was everybody just going to find their own way?
Everybody has to find their own, because people are individuals. And I don't think there's a one size fits all method for having a relationship with alcohol. I mean, if you want to quit for 30 days or 60 days and then reevaluate, that's great. One would hope that after 60 days, you're like, I'm feeling so fucking good, I'm just not doing this again,
Maybe,
but that's
60 days away, right?
Right.
So I don't
worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
Don't worry, just worry about today.
So I got to get through the next hour. That's the way.
Well, it's only like 10:15. I hope you can get through the next hour.
Well, a little judgment, huh? Yeah. Well, I thought this was a safe place, so apparently not. No, but I'm a day drinker, so I much prefer to drink during the day and then be in bed fairly early than drinking at night. I hate drinking at night. I mean, I do, but I hate doing it. I'd rather, if I'm at a bar at 2 a.m, I feel like I've failed somewhere in my life. But if I'm drunk at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, all right, I'm good. I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to go to bed.
I was the opposite. I like drinking at night. I like going out. I like doing all that stuff.
I like doing it.
Bars and everything. You know,
Yeah,
I was not a sit in the house and drink by myself kind of guy.
So I always, when I didn't start drinking until late in college. Actually, I think I was out of college before I started drinking. I really didn't drink in college. I was living on my own. And I always had a rule where everybody always said, like, if you drink by yourself, you're an alcoholic. So, I, 19, 20, 21 years old, I said, well, I live by myself. I can't, I don't have a friend over. I can't drink. So then I just avoided it.
That's funny.
It was like this mentality that I have it. Yeah. And now as an adult, that's my favorite time to drink. The kids are in bed. My wife's in bed.
All right.
I could sit there and watch a movie or play on my phone, or I could read some emails or do whatever I have to do. And I had to have a nice quiet drink by myself. And it was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to be sitting at a bar doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Towards the end of my experiences with alcohol, I used to just put on Grateful Dead YouTube videos and slam beers on the couch with everybody in bed. And sometimes I would completely crooked, stagger into bed at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
I'm not saying that's never happened, where I've just kind of like ping ponged my way up the stairs and stuff like that to get into bed. But it's I think as dads specifically, and this is not necessarily an alcohol thing, where we need that time right at the end of the day, right when everybody goes to bed and it's quiet, and no matter what you had going on during the day, you have this nice quiet moment to yourself. And I found when I was drinking, that moment could last an hour or 2 or 3 hours, or however long that it took me to get through the bottle of scotch. Without the alcohol, I find myself, I'm like, oh, all right, I'm just going to go up to bed. And I go up to bed.
Yeah.
And I go to sleep earlier.
That's what I do.
And my wife appreciates it because I'm coming upstairs and I'm cuddling, and it's like, oh, hey, you're here.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Cuddles is one benefit of quitting drinking.
Yeah, well, so when I told my wife that I was going to be on the podcast, she's like, "Well, are you going to talk about like that sex is better now, with drinking?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to bring it up. I texted you and you said it's not PBS,
you can say anything."
But one of the benefits that you don't really hear about with Dry January is sex is better, right? Especially if your wife isn't as heavy of a drinker as you are, or she's not on the same page when it comes to alcohol. Yeah, it's a lot better. You're both sober now, and it doesn't take 3 hours. You know? You don't get that frustration.
Hopefully, it doesn't take 3 minutes either.
No, well, you know what? Go to bed, or try again in like 20, 30 minutes or an hour. You're sober. You're not doing anything. You're staring at each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yet another benefit, right?
Yeah.
There's a with
there's nothing like drunk sloppy sex though.
I mean, there's a space for that too.
I know this is a recovery podcast, but we can say that drunk sloppy sex is probably everybody needs it every once in a while in their life.
I think if both of you are on the same wavelength with that, because drunk sloppy sex, if only one of you is drunk and sloppy, is not really where it's at. We're gonna go ahead and agree to disagree, because I I think if your wife is to that level, and then it could be a lot of fun. All right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. It's not that I don't want to talk about this subject. I wasn't prepared to talk about this subject.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking because I heard.
Have you guys ever talked about like sex on the show? Like we're like one of the benefits of
with our wives? No, our wives listen to the show.
No, you're not allowed to. All right, nobody has sex.
Well, that's not true either. But there's this whole stuff going on in the recovery movement where there's this. Have you ever heard of a guy called Gabor Mate? He's a psychiatrist who claims that all addiction is rooted in childhood trauma, and that our relationship with alcohol today is largely predicated on the experiences we had when we were kids. Do you think there's any truth to that? Or
I mean, you could say that about anything, right?
What do you mean?
Like just anything that's going on in your life, you could always try to relate it back to your childhood. Why do you have trust issues now? Why do you need to cuddle because your mom didn't do it enough? Or like you didn't get enough love, or this or that, or your parents drank and you're going to drink. I think it's kind of lazy, right? Just to say everything is rooted from your childhood, and there's probably some truth to it. right? But I don't know. It seems kind of like just I don't know. You're just like, it's your parents' fault.
I don't know if there's so much blaming of the parents involved as just sort of untangling the relationship and how it sort of went askew. Because I remember when we started the podcast, Nat and I were both like, we didn't have any trauma when we were kids, so we're like that rare sort of breed that never had anything happen. And then the more you sort of unpack it, the more you realize that, well, my mother actually was an alcoholic and she hid bottles around the house and stuff, and that was traumatic. Whether I identified it as such, it certainly had an effect on my own drinking and my behavior getting older. So I don't know. It
normalizes some of it for you.
Yeah.
Right. So like it was normal for my father to come home from work every single day, have a shot, have a beer, and that's what he did when he came home. And he would have dinner and then eventually go to bed. Right. Modeling. So when I'm home from work, I get to have a shot and I get to have a beer because that's, I had a great relationship with my father. So it wasn't like I hated him or I thought he was an alcoholic or anything like that.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's where I learned it from.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I think that trauma is at the root of a lot of, childhood trauma is at the root of a lot of substance abuse issues. I just don't know if it explains them all. I think there's plenty of people who have these issues and, really have pretty good childhood and so on, but
it's that nature versus nurture kind of argument, right?
Well, they haven't found an alcoholic gene yet.
I thought they did. I thought that was a thing.
No.
Where like if you're predisposed to have an addiction issue.
Well, if there's addiction in your family, that you may be predisposed to have addiction, but is that a nature or a nurture? I mean, that's. Yeah. I don't think they've isolated an alcohol gene or a gene that makes you more prone to alcoholism. Although there is a correlation, it's not necessarily a causative.
All right. That's something,
yet.
Right?
Yeah.
The what was he going to say? No, it doesn't matter. I had a thought, but it went away.
So, could you envision like a life without alcohol? What would that look like, do you think?
I have no clue. But to be honest with you, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for me to think what my life would be like without alcohol. Because so much of my life not necessarily revolves around drinking, but it involves drinking. Mm-hmm. If that kind of makes sense. Like I'm not trying to commit to saying that it all revolves around drinking. But I love going to the brewery. Mm-hmm. I love going out to restaurants and going out to eat and sitting there, taking over a bar and trying to make everybody laugh. Those are my favorite things in my life, or some of my favorite things. So I don't know. I don't know what it would be like. I'd probably be taking a lot more seagull pictures. But there's only so many of them you could take. I don't know. I've never really tried to envision what my life would be without some alcohol involved.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't either when I was drinking. It seemed impossible to visualize.
Well, I mean, imagine your life. What would your life look like if you didn't have a car? Mm. Could you?
I mean, yeah, but
no. I mean, realistically, you live here in town. Like, could you just not have a car? That's kind of like that same.
Yeah,
it's kind of just hard to visualize what your life would look like then. I don't know if I'd be happy.
So removing something so essential.
Oh man! Wow.
Is that what you mean?
Well, no.
Is that why you picked a car?
No, I'm just trying. Ow.
So along the lines of like the socialization and stuff, and I don't know. I guess we're getting kind of at the end. We got like an hour and 10 minutes in. Did it seem that long? No. I've
been sober for 9 days now. So,
so every minute seems like an eternity.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
There's a group out there called the Phoenix. Mm-hmm. You probably haven't heard of them, but they.
I've heard of it on your podcast, actually.
Okay, yeah. So they arrange like meetups and stuff to do things with other people who are not drinking.
Those were the guys you went out hiking, right?
Yeah, they ended up not showing up to that. which is fine. I mean,
recovering alcoholics are so
it's
unreliable.
Well, I mean, there is some of that. I mean, we try and show up when we can. At least I try and keep our commitments. But I'm not macking on the Phoenix. I mean, it wasn't a planned thing. Anyway, so they they set up meetups for hikes and for going to the gym together and playing pickleball and doing all this other stuff. And it seems like when I first heard of that, I thought, that's fucking brilliant, because that's exactly what's lacking. Because your choices are either, try and squeeze yourself into your old alcohol activities while not drinking, or, meet a bunch of people in AA and hang out with them talking mostly about alcohol, which seems odd to me that you spend a lot of time talking about the thing. You define yourself by the thing that you no longer do. Or you can join a group like this where, the commonality that you have with the other members is that you're all not drinking, but you're going out and doing normal, fun shit.
Do you still find yourself talking about not drinking to other recovering alcoholics?
Yes, an hour and a half a week, usually on Tuesday mornings.
Well, no, that's different. That's different. That's different. But like on a regular conversation, like you meet somebody else who's not drinking, are you sitting there talking about not drinking?
No, not really. I mean, when I went out to California and went hiking with some of those folks out in Muir Woods, we didn't really talk about it.
Didn't really, or
I mean,
it comes up
a little bit, but it wasn't. We talked about music, we talked about art, we talked about hiking. Normal shit. You don't just sit there and be like, "Oh, I haven't had a drink in 1,784 days."
I assume you guys will like take out your coins or whatever it is. And...
I don't have coins.
No, you don't?
I don't even know how many days. It's like. It's roughly 4.5 years, something like that.
Well, I mean, I think there's a way to do the math.
No, I have it on an app.
Oh, okay.
But I don't look at the app. Like in the beginning, I did.
That's what I wanted to bring up. So I downloaded an app. So this is like the neurodivergency of me.
Okay.
So I needed to make drinking efficient, or I wanted to like gamify it.
Okay.
So to speak. So I've always wanted to buy like a BAC
a breathalyzer kind of thing.
Breathalyzer. I couldn't think of it.
You know who makes a good one? SoberLink.
I think I've heard it on.
Yes, they're an advertiser.
Oh, okay. SoberLink for all your SoberLink needs. So I wanted to get one, and I wanted to see where I actually felt good, right? Because I wanted to.
Oh, like what blood alcohol content?
I want to know if it's 0.06 for me.
Wow,
that's where I want to be, and I wanted to make it efficient, right? So. This is more to do with my autism than it does my alcoholism.
Okay.
So very, very clear about that. So I felt that I couldn't, like CVS sells the breathalyzers.
Some breathalyzer you buy off the shelf, you can just get it.
You can just get it. They're $60. You could buy a breathalyzer. So I felt like I couldn't go buy one of those. Right. So if I walked into CVS, got a breathalyzer, and if my wife saw it, she'd be like, "What are you doing?" Or like she would sit there and like stop me, like,
"Honey, I'm learning how to drink more efficiently."
I can't say that, right? So I'm like, all right, well, there's got to be. I mean, it's just you could kind of like calculate this stuff, right? I know my body weight and I know all this other stuff. So there's plenty of apps that you can get on your phone that you can put in the exact kind of drink that you had. It has the alcohol content. You could put in. It doesn't do it with food, where like if fat content could bring down the BAC and all that stuff. So I started tracking it, and every single time I had a beer or any kind of drink, you put it in the app, and it'll tell you what your BAC should be at that level or at that time.
Jeez.
And then it'll count down to when you become sober. So the one aspect of the app that I didn't realize that was on there was that it tracks how long you've been tipsy, according to the app, or drunk according to the app.
Okay.
And I think tipsy was anything above a 0.04 to a 0.08, and then 0.08 to whatever number you're drunk.
Okay.
So it would track daily, monthly, weekly, whatever it is, how much time you spent sober, tipsy, and drunk. And you, the first time I realized I was doing that, and it gave me like my week total, I never used the app again. I said, I never want to see this. This is depressing. Yeah.
Self-knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Well, and I think a lot of people, when they do these 30 days sober and whatnot, they realize how much they drink. Right. And when I talk to people who aren't doing the dry January, and most of the people at work, I think I'm one of the only people there doing it. So I said, when was the last time you went without a drink? right? Well, like, well, you know, I had to work my 2 16-hour shifts, so I didn't drink anything. Well, I drank last night when I came home. I had a drink, and then I went to bed. It's like, well, how many days have you gone sober, like, for in general? 90% of them are all saying, like, maybe a day or two. You know, and I don't think that we realize
society doesn't have a problem with alcohol.
Well, we don't. So, like, the non-recovering ones, or the people that are complete denial about, you know, their relationship with alcohol. I don't think we realize how much we drink. Because why would you? You're living your normal life. Why would you think about it? You know, when I go out to dinner, when I have lunch, I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to have a drink, a glass of wine, whatever it is. Like, it's not. I'm not going out to go drink. I'm going out to dinner. And you do that 39 years later, and you're still doing that, you know?
So force a habit. You're just continuing on with the same habits. And
I don't think most people realize that it's a problem. They're just living.
Well, you can be, I mean, I was very high functional myself. Like, you know, I did my job well and everything, but inside, like, I was, you know, kind of not feeling great. My world had gotten very small. It was, you know, just basically I spent a lot of time thinking about booze. And
I'll tell you, as your friend, I never noticed.
Yeah. Well, you know, we put one face to the public, and then, you know, there's stuff inside your head. And part of the thing that I like about not drinking for 4.5 years is I can integrate the inside voice with the outside voice, and they start to become much more the same.
Well, I found so alcohol is numbing, right? So if you got feelings you're dealing with,
right,
you're numbing those feelings, right? You're making them go away for a little while, at least a little while,
right? Because
then on the other end of it, that's when they come back.
Well, right? that's why these challenges are very hard for people who are using alcohol to medicate, to cover up their.
You're sitting there like, I know my first 2 beers, I'm going to feel great. My 6, I'm going to start crying. You know, and it just like.
Well, see, now there's something that you might want to take a look at, right?
No. We're not going to go like deep into it. No.
Well, because deep is kind of where
I
you
feel
need
like
to go. You know,
I have to pay you a copay at the end of this. You know, this is so.
I'm a life coach.
You're a life coach. Yes. Oh, wonderful. So, if you're numbing these feelings, right? This is. I feel really bad today. Let me make myself feel good with a couple drinks. All right, I feel great. I don't have to think about it. And you're kind of like pushing it off.
You're just borrowing the suffering from the next day.
Yeah. You should be like.
But do you want
catchphrases on a pillow?
But
somewhere,
do you want to? But how long can you do that for?
Oh, you could do it for a really long time.
You can.
You really.
But I mean, is that? I don't know. To me, it's always like I felt like I was living like half a life. You know, because being fully present is its own weird high. And, you know, it's very irritating to hear people say they get high on life. You just want to punch them in the face.
It's like when you say that you get the runner's high, you know?
Well, I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah, sure.
But
the same thing.
But I found like I'm far higher. I don't know how to explain it. I'm far more in touch with who I am as a person now than I was then.
Do you like yourself?
Yeah.
You like this person more?
Yeah, I do. And that's something that I've also mentioned on the podcast. There's this guy called Paul Churchill, and he runs a podcast called Recovery Elevator. And he said he knew that he was finally getting over the hump, because you can stop drinking, and that's great, right? Mm-hmm. You know, for whatever reason, lose weight, a million, lower your cancer risk, whatever. But that's just part of it. The other part is then you start doing work on yourself. You start trying to figure out all the shit that's going on in your head and where that's all swirling around now that you don't have that crutch or that thing to make you feel better, right? And so Paul Churchill from Recovery Elevator said, and this always stuck with me, he said, I knew that I was starting to really get better mentally when the little voice inside my head, instead of calling myself a fucking asshole, I started calling myself a knucklehead, because that meant that I had transitioned from thinking that I was a piece of shit to thinking that I was a valuable person and a person worthy of love and all this other stuff. And that's the place I think we all want to get to in life, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think that's what we all strive
self-actualization, for, right? If you will, like just the matching up the inner feelings with the outward way you present yourself to the public.
Well, so we were saying like things you don't talk about in dry January, right? Or what somebody's going to experience. You're going to get hit with those feelings. You're going to get hit with that, oh my God, what have I been doing for the past however long that I've been drinking for? Or that thing that you've been pushing off, that's going to come up. And you either give up at that point and say, well, fuck this is way too like, real for me.
And a lot of people do.
You know, and if that's what you chose to do, that's, you know, that's on you. That's fine. What if you can get through that and decide like, hey, I'm going to deal with these big boy feelings and this is just what I have to get through, then, you know, more power to you. That's probably one of the hardest things. And that doesn't happen. That happens kind of like early on, right? It's not like one of these benefits that you get, you know, a month or 2 months into it. That happens within the first like few days of just like, I've been pushing this off for so long. And all right, why do I feel like this? You know? Right.
Yeah. I mean, it would benefit a lot of people if in addition to dry January, they picked up like therapy at the same time.
Yeah. Which I did.
You know.
So
did you?
Yeah. Okay.
So
I started seeing a therapist, and I realized that. So I can talk about this, but
you had a rough year.
Yeah, my brother passed away in May, and I've been on a bender since. Right. I'm not getting drunk at work. I'm not doing anything like I'm not hiding bottles or stuff like that. But I've been self-medicating and pushing off this anxiety and pushing off this grief for as long as I possibly can. So it was really, really important for me to do dry January this year because I needed to, again, that reset button, or I needed to give my therapist a chance to be able to work through this with me. Right. You know, so I needed that. And that's why I wasn't opposed to doing 60 days, right? When you said it, you know, hey, give 60 days a try. I was like, yeah, I should. I really should. So not everybody has that reason to do it, you know, and if you just want to do dry January just to see what it feels like without alcohol, that's a perfectly good reason. Sure. You know, just give it a try.
Yeah. You never know what can come out on the other end. Like
the other thing I will say, sleep sucks at first.
Yes, it does. And that's the other thing nobody talks about, because everyone says your sleep is going to improve like crazy, and it will.
Eventually.
You know, it's not going to be a couple of weeks though. No. Usually it's more than a month.
Yeah. Just the insomnia. Because especially if you've been drinking at night, or you're the person having that quiet drink, you know, when everybody else is in bed, right? You're using alcohol to put yourself to sleep, even though it's not real good sleep, right? You're not necessarily dreaming. You're waking up in the middle of the night, whatever it is. Right. So when you don't have that alcohol and now you're going to sleep sober, it sucks at first, you know, and it's hard. It really, really sucks. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple schools of thought on like mental health and drinking. One is like, you know, if you quit, you'll find out that your depression and your anxiety will greatly lessen or disappear. Or you quit and your depression and your anxiety are still there, and the self-medication that you've been doing, you've taken that away, and then you have to deal with the depression and the anxiety. But, you know, you don't know which it is unless you stop for a longer period of time. And
we had this conversation, and that's good. You know, hey, you got to give it a shot. Yeah. So you can't make any changes unless you make a change, right?
Nothing changes if nothing changes. Yep. Let's
put that on another.
That's an AA slogan, actually. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to leave it for now.
You want to leave it on an AA slogan? I mean, don't you guys have your own that you want to like promote?
Yeah. We'll do it. We'll fly it in.
You'll re-edit it.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff. It was great, and I think the listeners are going to benefit from it greatly. And good luck. And it would be great to talk to you at the end of 60 days and sort of get a check in and see where you're at.
Well, if I'll agree to it. But if I'm back to drinking, we're doing it at the bar. You don't have to drink.
You know, the only issue I have with that are audio issues. But other than that, I'm not opposed to doing it there because I'm free from the shackles of booze. It won't tempt me. It'll just be annoying.
Well, I want to see if your listeners can see a difference between me sitting here having a conversation sober and.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because you'll be drinking.
Maybe.
Okay.
Right? If I am.
If you are.
And let's just see if there's a difference.
Maybe. Let me chew on that one. All right. Thanks, Danny.
All right. Thank you.
All right. let's continue. Okay, we're back.
And we're back.
Yeah. So that was an hour and a half of me and Danny. Although for Nat and I, we've just been in the magical podcast time machine, and we actually just signed off the other part like 2 seconds ago. So anyway, we're back.
Great interview. I loved it.
Thanks. I have a very quick recovery in the news we could do. Do you want to do it?
Recovery in the news.
You can't hear that, can you?
Recovery in the news. Recovery. Recovery in the news. Yeah.
All right. I don't know. Maybe we have to
on the beat?
Fly that. No, not at all.
Damn it. All right. Well, I'll cut it out and put an old one in. All Recovery in the news.
Yes. Today's recovery in the news comes from the local paper in North Olmsted, Ohio. It's actually, hold on. I'm all verklempt. It's from Cleveland.
Verklempt.
It's from Cleveland.com. And the title is Man's Thirst for Alcoholic Beverages Results in His Arrest. An old story, but a good story.
An oldie, but a goodie.
This comes from the North Olmsted Police Blotter. So police officers at 9:56 p.m. on December 27th responded to Walmart regarding a man who was spotted walking around the store, opening and consuming multiple bottles of alcoholic beverages and then concealing the bottles.
Oh, I've done that before.
Well, did you get caught, though? Like this guy?
No.
Well, this guy got caught for, you'll see why. Multiple shoppers had complained about the man's unusual behavior, saying he was rambling incoherently and getting uncomfortably close while talking. According to a police report, a store loss prevention officer said the man was spotted selecting bottles of gin from the store shelves, pouring the contents into a cup, drinking the contents, and then discarding the bottles into a reusable shopping bag. The man initially did not cooperate with the police when he was confronted. When an officer asked if he had any weapons, the man responded by saying, "I am a weapon."
Good answer, though.
The man initially refused to accompany officers or to cooperate in being handcuffed, prompting additional officers to respond to the scene. They managed finally to handcuff him and learned that he had concealed 2 bottles of alcoholic beverages worth a total of $8.25 in his reusable shopping bag. At least he's environmentally conscious. One of the bottles had been more than half consumed, according to a police report. What kind of gin can you get at Walmart for like $8.25? Not very good gin. I would imagine. Anyway, he was charged with theft, possession of criminal tools, I guess that was the bag, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct by intoxication, according to police reports. So somebody in Cleveland is not embracing the dry January ethos, clearly.
Yeah. That is the opposite of dry January.
No, very wet January. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought that was a little amusing. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing at this man's problems, but I am a weapon.
I am a weapon. Yeah. Hard times call for drastic measures, I guess.
Yeah.
Recovery in the news.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was most lackluster.
We're doing our best.
Okay.
I did want to say one thing. I just remembered January 4th for me is the anniversary of my OD.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
Every year it comes around. Yeah, thank you, I think. Congratulations for not dying.
Yes.
But I often think back on this time, just looking back, it is 6 years, thinking back to how scary that really was.
Mm-hmm.
When when I went through that, I think as a defense mechanism, I convinced myself that no big deal, like when I woke up and when I got out of the hospital, and I just kept moving, like I was at work the next day, almost pretending like it didn't happen, and like my right arm didn't work for about a month. Like it was pretty fucked up, like the whole thing. Like, and when I think back on it now from this perspective, I almost, I can't think about it. It's hard for me to picture how close I really came to either being permanently maimed or dead. And then to think about just what the fallout, no matter how bad it was, what I went through, it would have been so much worse, if that had gone the other way. Just a couple of things that could have gone one way or the other, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, even though the 4th is the anniversary of the OD, you'll note that the 18th is my actual sobriety date, because I guess I was so out of it, I remember that I kept drinking. For the next few days, because I was just freaked out big time. I was still on probation at the time, and I was, oh man. And but I think on the 18th, if I think back, why did I pick that day? I had gone to my probation officer to explain what happened, and this guy was like an angel. I mean, he gave me so many chances. And so that day, he pretty much, he gave me not a pass, but he gave me a chance to not go to jail, basically. And for whatever reason, the next day I went into my outpatient, and I spoke to the psychiatrist that, I would get to meet with once a month. And I don't know what it was, but I said, I got to do something different. Because they would always ask you dumb questions. You'd be like, well, why did you do that? And I'm like, because I'm a fucking idiot. What do you want me to say? But I remember I said, we have to do something drastically different. And that is when he prescribed a new medication I had never heard of, Campril, and then that naltrexone. And then I swore to him that I would take it diligently, and then I would, basically start trying to let the medicine work and to let the recovery work. And that was the 18th. And, here we are. So
that's amazing, man. And it's, I
try not to think about it. I really do.
I'm so grateful that you grabbed that lifeline and it was handed to you. And that experience was a close one, but it precipitated you down the path to where you are today.
Yeah.
It's sometimes those lessons are hard learned,
It was a hard lesson, and thank God. And then we get to do this podcast, and we get to meet all of these great people, and I'm real grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for you and the Monksters, and wow, what a ride.
Yeah.
What a ride. And I can't wait to get my shit together and get this show going the way we want to do it. And thanks, guys, for sticking around while we try and sort this out. It's been so cool to get where we are with this show. And we've got a great show coming up with See Swallow Me?
Pardon me? No, yeah, Suki Jones.
Suki Jones.
Yes.
So we do have great stuff coming up. We're planning, and I'm really excited to read that book and get her on the show. So if you don't have See Swallow Me, it's by Suki Jones. You might look it up, and you could read along with us. It's a pretty exciting memoir.
Nat will come over to your house and act out all of the parts in See Swallow Me. He does a really good sex worker. I
can play a sex worker if I have
to. Cool. Yeah, it's not out on audiobook yet, but you can get it on a Kindle.
I was going to make one for her without asking her. What do you think of that? I had an idea where we would read a
little
chapter.
Creepy, but it's why not?
We could do like a chapter every week. I actually thought about this. I'm like, that would be kind of fun. You and I could read it back and forth, and
Patreon content.
Do the audio. Yes, yes. So,
all right, we didn't shill anything this week, which is probably fine. Join Patreon if you want to. I mean, we just take the money and put it in a bank account and give it away to people.
Yeah. Join us on Patreon, patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. Join us on Facebook. We've got a great discussion group. It's getting very active. People are supporting one another, funny memes, discussion topics. We talk about the show, what's going on in our lives, celebrate soberversaries. And also on the Patreon, there's the Discord group, the Inner Sanctum, where the main Monksters hang out.
That's not the Monksters from Maine. That's all the principal Monksters who are not principals.
There's one from Maine, I think, but not all of them are from Maine.
Right.
So join us on there. Give us a review. Go to your Apple Podcast app, scroll down, boom, hit the review. We'll read it. We look forward to hearing from you guys. Send us stories. We don't have enough stories. I need more stories.
Yeah.
So write to Mike R at middleagesrecovery.com. And yeah, we'll read it. It'll be fun. I promise not to do a voice.
No. You should promise to do a voice.
I mean, I will do a voice.
Yes.
And you never know what accent I will attempt to replicate on any given day.
All right. Are we done with this? I need to go.
No, we're never done. Let's keep talking. And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something or anything out of our little show, please share the love and help grow the RMA movement. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
That means I need to go get ice cream from the freezer. Progress, not perfection.
Time.
Yes.
No, it's Stay Fresh cheese bags.
Yes, it is. Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Be good.
Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.